Welcome back to JT's Film Reviews. I'm your host, JT Johnson, and today I take a look at Captain America Brave New World. Before I get to the review, though, I do have some movie news to get out of the way. The first thing I wanted to talk about was how disappointed I was in the Super Bowl commercials this year, namely the movie trailers. They were just cut down versions of films we had already seen footage for. There was Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, Jurassic World Rebirth, Megan 2.0. The only original thing I saw was a humorous little Lilo and Stitch teaser in which Stitch goes nuts on the football field, but that was about it. Movie studios are starting to realize that they don't have to spend all that money on the Super Bowl these days. There are other avenues to get trailers out, so I understand it. But I was hoping we'd get maybe a little tease for something we haven't gotten a trailer for yet. But alas, there was not much there for the Super Bowl. I was kind of hoping to have more to say here about the Super Bowl and what trailers would be featured, but no dice. I mean, this one was pretty disappointing. The only other piece of news I have is that Wes Anderson's new movie, The Venetian Scheme, has got a distributor and a release date. The film will be distributed by Focus Features. They are the same company that distributed the last film, Asteroid City. Once again, Universal Pictures will be handling the foreign distribution, and the movie will have a limited release on May 30th, and the movie will release wide on June 6th. Now that the movie news is out of the way, I can get to the review of Captain America Brave New World. It's the latest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And before I get to it, I do need to talk about my thoughts on the multiverse saga and my thoughts on Marvel movies since Avengers Endgame. Give you just a little brief history so you know where I stand with this new saga, or this second saga that Marvel's been telling over the past few years. I do not think the multiverse saga has been as strong as the Infinity Saga, for sure. However, I will admit I have enjoyed, yes, even the ones that were more critically bashed, I've enjoyed the individual films for what they are. I enjoyed Shang-Chi, I enjoyed Eternals, which that one really got raked over the coals by critics. Of course, I've loved the big ones, Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine, of course. I actually recently rewatched Black Widow, and I forgot that movie's actually pretty good. It just maybe came a little too late in terms of its necessity, although it did introduce Yelena. That said, I'm not watching Captain America Brave New World in the context of the overall multiverse arc, because I'm not as interested in that. So I'm just viewing the movie. When I went in, I'm just viewing the movie as a Captain America movie. This is the fourth Captain America movie, the first one with Anthony Mackie's Sam Wilson as Captain America. So with that said, the story basically follows Sam Wilson as he's still trying to get used to being Captain America. He's still trying to figure things out in his new role as basically a leader and the man with the shield. Meanwhile, Thaddeus Ross has been elected president, and he is trying to negotiate a treaty that will help have an everlasting peace. I don't want to say too much more beyond that because there's some spoilers there. Of course, something bad has to happen, and a conspiracy is hatched, and there's an assassination attempt on President Ross's life. One of the assassins ends up being Isaiah Bradley, the forgotten Captain America, played by Carl Lumbly, and he is arrested and put in prison. So Sam Wilson not only has to try to stop a world-endangering plot, he's also trying to clear his friend's name. That's the essential synopsis without giving too much more away than that. Before I move on, I will say I really enjoyed this movie, but it's not perfect, so I do want to get maybe some of the things that bothered me out of the way. Firstly, there are a couple of special effects shots where it doesn't work. I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie afterwards and was kind of surprised that as of this recording, it sat at 52%. And I don't agree with that score, but a common criticism is like, oh, the effects are so bad. The effects are so bad. Yes, there are a couple of effect shots where I was like, oh wow, that feels rushed or felt maybe put in later, something along those lines. But overall, I thought the special effects were great. I thought the Red Hulk looked great, and that was another thing that critics were criticizing, and I didn't really agree with their assessment. I thought they did a really good job on the Red Hulk. The other thing that I have to say is that it's just simply not as good as other Captain America films. In particular, I think Civil War is still great, and of course, I think The Winter Soldier is the film to beat as far as the best Captain America movie ever made. Uh, I don't think this movie lives up to those films quite as well, but it's still solid. It's still rock solid. Anthony Mackie is fantastic as Captain America. I like that he is still trying to figure out his place in the world. I will say there are moments in the movie where he might as well have taken the superhero or super soldier serum because he takes hits a lot like Steve Rogers in a couple of scenes, and you're kind of like, okay, you're supposed to be a human being. That's the whole point. You're not superhuman. You're very much just flesh and blood, and they do play with that a little bit. But there's a couple of scenes that kind of go against that. So there's a criticism I kind of do have. He does have a great supporting cast, though. I think that Danny Ramirez is great as Joaquin Torres, aka our new Falcon. He has a lot of great chemistry with Anthony Mackie, and he's fun to watch. He has this sort of Boy Scout humor to him that I think fits the character very well. So he does a good job. And I want to go ahead and address some controversy. I know there's some controversy with Shira Haas and her being in the movie as the Israeli-born character, Ruth Bat-Seraph, I think is her name. There's been a lot of controversy because of the real-world problems is happening right now with Israel and Palestine. And all I can say is they did change her origin. Yes, she's still Israeli-born, but she's like an ex-Black Widow. I can go ahead and say that. That's not really a spoiler. I think that was actually revealed before the movie was released. And Haas does a great job as the character. I really enjoyed watching her. Carl Lumbly is once again great as Isaiah Bradley, the forgotten Captain America. He has a few emotional scenes that I really enjoy. And then there's Giancarlo Esposito as Sidewinder. He does a good job as well. Another great villainous performance. Suffers from what a lot of MCU films suffer from, which he plays the villain very well, but there's not much to the villain. So we have another kind of weak villain scenario, which has kind of plagued MCU since the beginning. They want to focus more on the superheroes, which I get, but very rarely do we get a villain that is more complex and has more involvement or personal clash with their heroes. That's kind of been an MCU problem. The action in the movie is absolutely solid throughout. There's an aerial sequence that I thought was the highlight of the movie. I can't talk too much about it because I would be getting into even more spoiler territory, but it's a really fun sequence. It's probably my favorite sequence in the movie. And something we've seen in the trailers, you know it's going to happen, the Captain America Red Hulk fight. That is another highlight of the movie as well. Again, I thought Red Hulk looked great. I thought the fight was great. I think it's a very well done action sequence, and a lot of the action is very, very well done. So while the story is simpler than other Captain America films, there were still some good moments. And this includes particularly Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross. He took over for William Hurt, who passed away, sadly. And he's great as Thunderbolt Ross. He's not just an angry character. They do give him more complexity in this movie than they've ever really given the Thunderbolt Ross character. He's not just there to stand in the good guy's way. Don't get me wrong, it's not for lack of trying. But he has a few good emotional scenes. He has a few good scenes that really kind of add layers to that character that that character really didn't have before. So that was fun to watch as well. The story is fun. The cast is good. The action is good. It's not the best MCU film. It's not the best Captain America film, but it is far from being the worst MCU film or the worst superhero film. I think that 52% has just come from critics. I have this feeling critics just love to bash superhero films these days. Like they're going in with an agenda to hate the movie. It doesn't always work. They did like Deadpool and Wolverine, although even that I think was in the 80s and really should have been in the 90s. But this movie, it's good. It's fun. It's just a good popcorn movie, like it should be. That's what superhero films try to do. I easily give this movie 4 out of 5 stars. It's an easy 4 out of 5 for me. I really enjoyed it. I think if you're a fan of the MCU, you know what you're getting with this one. You should see it. It's got a good self-contained story as well. It does not deal with the multiverse stuff very much, which was kind of relieving. I was kind of like, oh, good. I'm not having to deal with that sort of mediocre arc that they're trying to build right now. With that said, that's really all I have to say about this movie at this time without getting into huge spoiler territory. And so I say, check out the movie. I'll see you with another film review soon. And until then, I'll see you at the movies.